It was as if the world were slowly entering a fog that no one noticed, a kind of spiritual silence that enveloped the cities, the homes, and even the thoughts of people. The streets remained crowded, families continued their routines, and calendars marked the end of the year with the same haste as always. But in the invisible realm, something was beginning to stir with increasing intensity, as if the heavens were taking a deeper breath before speaking. And it was in that silent interval, between one ordinary day and another, that Jesus chose to reveal to a simple man what would take place between the 1st and 8th days of December. He was not a prophet, not a theologian, not a ministry leader. He was merely someone whose heart was sensitive enough to hear when no one else was paying attention. It all began on an ordinary early morning when he awoke without knowing why, sensing a gentle presence in the room, as if the atmosphere were vibrating differently. There was no fear, no disturbance, only a profound peace and an irresistible call to remain awake. He walked to the window, and upon looking at the sky he noticed an unusual light along the horizon, something that did not appear to be moonlight, a star, or an artificial reflection. It was a soft, milky glow, as if a transparent veil lay over the firmament, and when he touched the glass with the tips of his fingers, he felt as though that glow responded, as if it were a sign that something was about to be revealed. At that moment, Jesus spoke to him in a voice that did not resonate in his ears but in his spirit, a voice capable of piercing through any layer of doubt, weariness, or distraction. He said that the days of December had long been marked in the heavens, and that they were not days of fear, but of awakening. He explained that children had been sensing it for weeks, perceiving subtle changes in the environment, dreaming of lights, sounds, and movements that adults insisted on ignoring. He also said that the signs would not be violent, nor destructive, nor cause for panic, but would be profound, subtle, and spiritually compelling. They would be sufficient to shake the hearts of those who were attentive and to expose the blindness of those who were distracted. The man listened in absolute silence, trying to grasp every detail. Jesus continued, saying that between the 1st and 8th days there would be an expansion of spiritual sensitivity, as if the veil between the visible and the invisible were growing thinner. People would experience this in different ways. Some would weep without reason, others would have sudden recollections of forgotten moments, and others would have vivid dreams carrying messages of repentance, direction, or consolation. He said that many would awaken in the middle of the night with the sensation that someone was calling them by name, yet they would lack the courage to admit it. He further explained that these 8 days would be like a door that opens briefly before closing again. The man asked why children were the first to perceive it. Jesus replied that their hearts remain pure enough to notice spiritual movements without rationalizing, doubting, or attempting to explain them with logic. They sense it first because they have not lost the simplicity of the soul. He then showed him scenes of children pointing to the sky, describing lights that no one else could see, recounting similar dreams occurring in different parts of the world. These were dreams of a white light descending like a luminous breeze, dreams of words that sounded like music, dreams of a gentle call to remain close to God. And while the children spoke, the adults smiled distractedly, finding it amusing or inconsequential. Jesus then revealed something even deeper. He showed that during these 8 days, there would be a change in the behavior of animals, not something aggressive or dangerous, but a heightened sensitivity. Dogs would become more alert, birds would slightly alter their flight paths, and small creatures would move as if responding to something invisible. He explained that animals, like children, perceive spiritual changes with greater clarity. The man saw birds taking flight all at once, as if responding to a silent signal from above. He saw dogs gazing at the sky with unusual attentiveness, as if listening to something that humans could not perceive. Jesus also revealed a natural phenomenon that would occur during these days, something gentle yet significant. The light of the sky would seem subtly different, as if the brightness of day carried warmer tones and the onset of night held deeper colors. It would not be something captured by most cameras or reported by the media, but it would be perceptible to spiritually sensitive eyes. He explained that it was a reflection of the nearness of the divine presence, not as a physical event, but as a spiritual sign manifested in creation. And he said that those who sought stillness would perceive it immediately. The man then saw scenes of people around the world being inwardly touched, crying out of repentance, feeling a need to ask for forgiveness, recalling forgotten promises. He saw marriages being restored, parents embracing their children with rare sincerity, people releasing long-held grudges. Jesus explained that the spiritual atmosphere of these days would awaken deep emotions because the heavens would be calling humanity back to their first love. He said that it was not judgment, not a threat, not a harsh warning, but a loving invitation. The man asked why adults were so unprepared. Jesus replied that the pace of modern life hardens the heart, occupies the mind, and stifles spiritual sensitivity. He showed people rushing, working, planning, scrolling through screens, accumulating distractions. He showed adults hearing, but not truly listening, looking, but not truly seeing, living, but not truly feeling. Adults are unprepared because they have lost the ability to remain still long enough to notice when the Spirit draws near. They have lost the innocence that allows them to perceive the divine in the simple. Jesus said that between the 1st and 8th days, there would be a soft, almost imperceptible sound that could not be captured by devices but would be heard in the Spirit. It would not be a trumpet, an explosion, or a noise, but a vibration that would call to sensitive hearts. He showed some people awakening in the early morning hours during this period, feeling a gentle pressure in their chests, not of fear, but of presence, and he said that this sound would mark the beginning of a new season. The man then saw the 8th day. What he saw caused him to tremble, not from fear, but from the weight of revelation. He saw a silent division, not physical, but spiritual, between those whose hearts had awakened and those who remained asleep. He saw light over some and shadow over others, not as punishment, but as the consequence of ignored sensitivity. And Jesus said that this would be only the beginning. The man awoke from the vision with tears still on his face. The room was filled with a calmness that was not of this earth, a nearly tangible serenity that made the air feel lighter. He felt in his body the echo of what he had witnessed, as if his very heart were vibrating at a different frequency. Looking out the window, he noticed that the dawn had a more vivid glow, and the clouds seemed to float more slowly, as if time itself had stretched to allow him to better comprehend what he had seen. This was not merely a revelation, but an invitation. Jesus had not shown him the days of December to impress him, but to prepare him. A spiritual summons was taking place, and the signs would be subtle enough to escape human haste. In the days that followed, the man began to notice small changes in everyday life. People he had known for years began behaving differently. A formerly skeptical neighbor appeared at his door in tears, asking for prayer without knowing why. A child from the street recounted dreaming of an angel clothed in light, who said that the heavens were drawing closer. Even the plants seemed to respond unusually, blooming out of season, as if creation itself were answering the same call. Everything seemed to whisper a single message: something was approaching, and few were paying attention. As the calendar drew nearer to December 1st, a melancholic peace spread through the man's heart. He felt no fear, but a growing sense of responsibility. He knew that many would expect grand signs, but Jesus had warned him that it would be the opposite. "The kingdom comes in silence," he had said. "Those whose hearts are noisy will hear nothing." The man then began recording everything in a notebook, every detail of the vision, every word, every nuance of the presence. He did so not out of curiosity, but out of obedience. It was like preserving an invisible map, the coordinates of which would only make sense when the days arrived. On the early morning of December 1st, he awoke precisely at 3:19 without an alarm. The air carried a different scent, like that of freshly fallen rain, though the sky was clear. Stepping out onto the balcony, he heard a faint sound, not of wind or instrument, but a sustained note, as if the atmosphere itself were singing. It was too soft to be rationally explained, yet deep enough to move him to tears. Suddenly, he recalled Jesus' words, "There will be a sound that only the awakened will recognize." This was the first sign. In the days that followed, unusual reports began to emerge. People in different countries posted similar messages on social media, describing a sense of intense presence, an uncontrollable peace, or an irresistible urge to pray without ceasing. There were no dramatic physical events, no spectacular news, only an internal, global and silent movement. The man smiled, realizing that what Jesus had told him was unfolding exactly as foretold, not as a spectacle, but as a seed. The heavens were awakening the invisible within people, and only the sensitive would perceive it. On the third day he had another dream. He saw a large wooden table upon which 7 lamps were lit. Each lamp represented a spiritual gift: discernment, wisdom, faith, humility, compassion, repentance, and purity. The 8th lamp remained unlit. He tried to light it, but a voice said, "It will be lit when adults become like children once more." He awoke weeping, understanding the meaning. Adults had lost the simplicity that opens the eyes to the supernatural. This was why Jesus had said they were unprepared. As time progressed, the man felt an increasing urgency to share the message, yet something in his heart prevented him from doing so publicly. Jesus had instructed him that this revelation was not meant to instill fear, but to inspire repentance and intimacy with God. Thus he chose to speak quietly, one person at a time, always conveying the same words. Between the 1st and 8th of December, the heavens will touch the earth in a different way. Pray, be still, listen. And in every attentive gaze that received his words, he saw the glow of rekindled hope. On the night of the 4th day, the man witnessed something extraordinary. The night sky was dotted with stars sharper than usual, and for brief minutes a white flash traversed the horizon, silent and majestic. It was neither a meteor nor an explosion, but a gentle glimmer, like a reflection in the glass of the universe. In that moment he felt a warmth course through his entire body, as if the divine presence were nearer than ever. He knelt, and tears flowed effortlessly. "Lord," he whispered, "what is happening to us?" And in his innermost being he heard the response, "I am drawing the hearts of men back to mine once again." On the 5th and 6th days, something remarkable began occurring in various parts of the world. Without any logical explanation, entire groups of people felt a spontaneous desire to sing, pray, give thanks, and reconcile, not out of tradition, but from an inner impulse. The atmosphere was different. The nights were quieter, the mornings more luminous, as if time itself had become an altar. Walking through the streets, the man perceived a new serenity in people's faces, even if they did not know why. Some looked to the sky and smiled, others simply sighed, as if something were touching them from within. He understood that these were the invisible fruits of the divine touch. On the 7th day, Jesus spoke to him again in the Spirit. He said that the 8th day would be the most significant, for it would mark the silent separation, not a physical division, but a spiritual demarcation. "It will be the day when sensitivity is measured," Jesus said. "Those who heeded my call will continue to grow in light. Those who ignored it will return to the sleep of distraction." The man asked if this meant judgment, and Jesus replied, "No, it means choice. Light does not punish, it merely reveals who is awake and who still sleeps." On the early morning of the 8th day he did not sleep. He remained in silent prayer, awaiting what would come. At 4:15 the wind ceased entirely. Everything grew still, as if the world had held its breath. Then, without warning, an indescribable wave of peace descended upon the place. It was not mere emotion, but presence. The man felt as if Christ himself stood before him. No words were spoken, yet everything was understood. It was the fulfillment of what had been shown, the final touch, the subtle separation, the seal of awakening. When the sun rose on that 8th day, the man sensed that something on the earth had changed, even though the world appeared the same. The news continued as usual. Routines proceeded unchanged, but in the spiritual realm a new season had begun. He knew that few would understand, but that no longer mattered. What had been revealed was not intended to convince, but to awaken. Jesus had shown him that the true miracle was not in the heavens, but within people, in hearts that begin to feel again, in eyes that begin to see again, in souls that begin to hear once more the gentle sound of God's presence. That morning the man walked into the garden and breathed deeply. The air seemed new. The sound of the leaves, the brightness of the light, everything carried a different significance. He understood that Jesus' warning was not about fear, but about return. Those 8 days were not an end, but the beginning of something invisible, a silent awakening. While adults still sought to comprehend it, the children already smiled, as if they knew that the heavens had drawn closer to the earth. And as the world continued in its distraction, the Spirit whispered, "Whoever has ears, let them hear what I am saying now."